By seeing my own challenges, I see the opportunity of helping so many others as well, right? That's why I did the gathering, because I need a support network, and I know that so many other people as well. So why don't we just solve it for a whole bunch of people, and then my problems will be solved, but so will be many, many, many others.
Welcome to the Soul Awakened Leadership Podcast. Soul Awakened leaders are courageous innovators and pioneers who embody a deep knowing of our interconnectedness and operate from a mindset of co-creation in service to all of life. They surrender their existence completely to a higher organizing principle that is leading them beyond separation and competition and opens up the potential for an entirely new way of being on this planet in a time of metamorphosis. In this podcast, I share cutting-edge perspectives and invite the voices of leaders who don't create followers but inspire others to step into their true power and essence. And in this episode, I'm sharing a recording from a leadership coaching session with Victor Vorski. Victor is a serial entrepreneur, village builder, regenerative pioneer, and has a background in computer science. He also holds an MBA from McGill University and is the co-founder of the Gathering of Tribes, where I met him again this year with over 500 other people from the regenerative movement. In this coaching session, we explore how Victor's strategy of self-doubt and making himself small kept him safe in the past, but is preventing him from his next level of leadership that life is calling him to step into. We unpack how building a strong support system of powerful allies is already a disruption of outdated beliefs and how his wound around belonging might be his greatest gift and contribution. Welcome, Victor. If we open a space of possibility and let go of all limiting beliefs of what might be holding us back today, what would become possible? What's the potential if we step into this space for this session today?
For me, for this session today, understanding what working with you would be like. Yeah, I think that is actually, I am trying to understand how to, whether with you or also with other people, I do this informally with a few friends, but how to build a stronger network of support around myself. You know, like that impact real estate thing that we're doing together. It's a example of that, right? Trying to build this network. I don't come the telegraph summary of my story. I was born in Poland, then lived in Canada, then Japan, then here and there, you know. So I don't have a strong network. I've moved around. I don't have a strong support system. Right? My father loves me. He's wonderful, complete. He doesn't understand what I'm doing. Da 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 da. So, you know, I mean, I definitely no longer feel alone, and definitely through the gathering and through these things, I've met a lot of great people. And I think now I'm at this stage of like, okay, the potential is out there. How do I assemble something out of this where it's, you know, the pyramid where we're all able to stand on each other's shoulders, right? And having that support. Yeah, I'm very curious of whether coaching. I've never done coaching. I did for like 6 or 8 months. My friend he's older. He's this amazing guy. He started doing therapy. So I said, oh, why don't you? So I did 6 or 8 months with him, which was cool. Then he fired me. He said, I think you're done. And I was like, really? I'm done? But I've never tried coaching before. So yeah, I'm curious how to get a sense of how that could work. What would it even feel like what's it like to feel supported? You know, I mean, I'm an only kid. My whole life story is not in kind of dramatic, you know, I was in a refugee camp, orphan kind of sense, but in that modern big city, you know, world kind of lonely.
What would that allow you if you had that in your life, that kind of support?
It would allow me to have confidence that I can bring into the world all of those many dreams that I come up with, all of those to properly be of service to the great unfolding, regeneration, Gaia, blah blah blah, that higher purpose. And I say it dismissively, not in the sense that I feel dismissive, something that I've really come to appreciate, and the gathering is one part of manifestation of that. I don't know if I shared, but I'll share with you. I've like the journey of a systems change maker. First is the why, which is the collapse or the donut, like that whole thing. I'm done with it. I was at this retreat and there was an hour-long lecture on collapse with a guy who's like a top world expert on it, and my whole insides were churning, right? Because I was like, I really do not want to be here. Not because he's wrong, not because I disagree, but it doesn't add anything. Like, I know enough about the horrors. I'm doing the best that I can. So that's the why. Then there is the how, which is all of the frameworks, regeneration, love, all of this. And I'm done with that too, right? And then it's the next stage, which I call GSD, get shit done, right? And I'm totally in the get shit done kind of thing, right? I want to be working, doing great stuff with people that are making change in the world whilst making a decent livelihood doing it, right? I don't need to get rich, just aspire to, regular Western middle classish kind of a stable livelihood. So if I had more of a support network like we are starting to build, and if I felt supported, it would allow me to move in that direction. Also would allow me to make better choices because, the field of possibility is massive. I think you must be experiencing this some ways yourself as well. The field of possibility and navigating that in a good way. Yeah, I need help to do better sense making.
Yeah, I can feel from what you're sharing that something is is almost overripe. That there's something that has been bubbling within you that just longs to come more fully into the world. And that where you are right now, in terms of your knowledge, in terms of your insights, in terms of your capacity, is coming to an edge in terms of what of that is actually manifesting in the world. That there's more that wants to come through you than currently is being expressed.
Definitely. Definitely, and I want to be I also want to be in service more. This is also something that I've kind of really noticed. I don't really, okay, what's leadership, but don't really have a strong urge. I don't think I'm good at the tip of the arrow. I'm just my mental health makeup is such that sometimes I have bad days, sometimes I have bad weeks, sometimes I have bad months. And when I break, sometimes it's not pretty. I would much rather be a good right-hand man, first lieutenant of a great leader, and yeah, aspire to be a good second in command. Or maybe to end up being in enough of maybe this is the other thing. If I had enough of a support network, I could be more at being the tip of the arrow. But I'd have to be really, really much better supported. And by the way, to be clear, by support, I don't mean people being nice to me and, hugging me when I cry. I'm really looking for a group of or strong men personalities who'll kick my ass when I need it.
Mm. Yeah, my curiosity goes into this direction of where your edge is right now. And I feel we're tapping into that when you speak about your role in this whole cosmic constellation. Because I perceive you very much as a leader. And yet you mentioned that there's something holding you back of fully owning that, of fully stepping into that. And I'm wondering how much the desire to be the second in command is actually coming from a place of truth and insight and acknowledging your zone of genius, or if there's something that is coming from a place of fear, a place of making yourself smaller than you are.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think part of it remains to be determined, but definitely I would need to be, and it's starting to come. Dror is here, by the way. You met Dror,
Nice.
right? He's
Of
here.
course. Yeah.
Retreat, and if I had a bunch of other people like that, if we do build a village, if I was surrounded by that level of support on a day-to-day basis,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like his support, like he's just there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's quiet and calm, and just like the whole nervous system down regulates being around people like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you allow yourself to dream big and you had that support system, and a few people like him, and maybe some others that you don't even know that support you in ways that you're not even aware of would be supportive. If you had all the support that you could ask for and more, and we would be talking in 1 year time. So on the 14th of November in 2025. And you would tell me, Jonathan, back then we had this call and I shared this vision with you and it's all true. What would you tell me on the 14th of November 2025? What has manifested for you in the last year if you're speaking from this now moment as if it was the 14th of November, 1 year later?
I guess the big difference is I would not be afraid of failure,
Mm.
and I would really have. So I have lots of beautiful dreams and ideas, but they are dragged down by uh, just self doubt.
Mm.
Self doubt, and this self doubt, I guess, goes to two direct. It has two parts. One is just the usual ability. Is it possible? Is these ideas crazy? Does it make any sense? And then the other one is, as a person who has had, my mother had mental health challenges. I've had mental health challenges. Again, nothing properly dramatic, right? I've never ended up in a hospital or whatever, but I was depressed for like 20 years. I've had breakdowns. I had half a breakdown at the gathering. So there is a, a self doubt of yourself, right? Will I be able to carry the burden, carry the stress, and yeah, when shit hits the fan, and shit always hits the fan in one way or another, will I be able to bear it and stand it, or will I break in some nonlinear way which fucks things up? Uh, so yeah, so if I felt supported, then I would know that I could trust, first of all, with the ideas and so on and so forth, there'd be enough people to run it through, to come up with ideas that make sense. And second, with the emotional, psychological side, knowing that if things get tough, there will be people there, people who I can call on, or people who will, drag me out of the room physically when I shouldn't be there anymore. If that's what it takes.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like these competing commitments within yourself. On one hand, there is the desire to be of service, there is the calling that you feel to step up into a bigger leadership role, and on the other hand, there's the fear of, on one hand, yeah, does it make sense what I'm attempting to do? Can we pull this off? But even stronger, I feel the fear of, will I be able to hold that intensity? Will I be able to deliver what I promise to deliver?
Yes. And yeah. Will I be able to be the kind of person that you need to be consistently to make it happen?
Mhm. What happens if you're not? What would it mean?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, is losing connection, losing friends, losing partners, coworkers, uh, who are disappointed and don't want to work with you again. Being alone again.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have something that I've noticed. Different people deal with separation with a different level of intensity. Romantic is an easy one, right? I mean, I've got friends that go through partners like I go through Netflix shows, and actually not in any kind of a devious psychopathic way. It's just their light-hearted, easy way of being in the world. Because there are
Hmm.
also people who do it in a psychopathic way. But it's just like, yeah. But for me, sometimes it took me years to get over romantic relationships that lasted months, like really disproportionate. And other than one which I just kind of lost contact because it was before the internet, every woman that I loved, I'm friends with now.
Hmm.
One which is like my sister. I don't have siblings, so she's like my adopted sister. She's partners with a good friend of mine now, so it's a nice happy ending. And yeah, and I love them all forever. Right, my dear friends from high school. I'm the one who kept the connections going. I'm just not very good at letting go. So I think I deal with trauma of separation harder than a lot of other people.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I can just sense, and obviously from what I've known from you, that you're a deeply sensitive person. And I feel that there's a tremendous gift in that, especially for what is calling you. You're also in that bringing the potential of being a different leader. And in many ways, you've already also embodied that. Well, it was never really about you. You always said so clearly, no, we're doing this together. And I feel that there's deep beauty in that. And I can also sense how you're in some way invited to take up more space and to really own also your piece in that.
Yeah, and I think as with so many things in my life, I feel like I was born for either a different kind of an era or born to through my sensitivity and suffering to bring forth a new era, right? Why am I
Mm-hmm.
building? Because I'm lonely and I can't stand the current status quo. Uh, and yeah, I think that different kind of leadership, it's it's not the standard vision of what leadership is out there, right? Which is the hero, at the front of the hero leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am much more interested in being the servant leader and, serving tea, washing the feet of the team.
Mm-hmm. And I can sense how you're at a certain threshold where what used to work for you as a strategy isn't quite working anymore. And I feel that you're already tapping into that and applying a new strategy to how you've done things before. So what I hear you doing now is to reach out and ask for support rather than doing it all by yourself. And having clarity of like, hey, where life is calling me to be, I cannot do it possibly alone. And I'm done with being alone.
Uh, I think I always did reach out to some degree, but I think what is different is I really have a strong awareness that now my success, my happiness, it's really all about building those relationships of support and the network.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said, I know the why, I know the how, I know enough of the frameworks from the communication to the economy to the team to the inner development, outer development, and all of this. And not that I'm
Mm-hmm.
an expert, but I know that they're out there, and I'll know when to pull them in and pull in the right experts when they're needed. But now to actually get shit done, which is the bringing together the resources and yeah, need the people, need the right relationships with the right kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe because I guess the stronger part of my background is from my father. He's in computers since the 1950s, 60s. So forever. And I had a computer science degree, which is much more about what you know, right? Or ideas, technology, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really grew up with that mentality of building a network, which some people are just have much more of a stronger awareness of, right? Like why do you go to the right schools and da da da? It's got nothing to do with the schools. It's the people that happen to be there and building that network and those relationships. I think maybe also to some degree because I'm so unmoved, unimpressed, and unexcited about the standard mainstream, make more money, rich people kind of world. I was never really motivated to go network building. Whilst now, finally, yeah, the gathering was nice, but having those 200-300 conversations with different systems change makers around the world before was amazing, was incredible, right? From quite young people in uni figuring it out to quite full on elder being doing this shit for 40 years, full on white hair, like they're all amazing. It was so inspiring. So I think maybe for the first time, I'm like, really, I love these people. For when we got married and we started on the village building and all of this, I think for almost 10 years, our motto with my wife was have to find the others. Uh, Now with yourself and with the people we see around us, I think for the first time in my life, I really feel like I found the others. So now it really, yeah, I really feel if there is a new stage, it's in the sense of within this amazing group that we found to start building the connections and the group of builders. The people who I can connect with and the people who I can build and create with.
So I feel that this piece is coming more and more online. Huh? There is all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but you've been building consistently a network of people that you see are out there and that you're reaching out to for more support. What I still see somehow needing or wanting to be updated is that there is this strategy of keeping yourself smaller than you are. So I feel that there's this call in life that is asking you to bring something, to birth something that goes beyond what you've done so far. And then the self-doubt kicks in of, is that realistic? Does it make sense? Which is the mind in a way creating a smoke screen to not follow your excitement. But what I feel...
There is that, and then there is also, as an immigrant kid, as I guess neurodivergent before neurodivergent was a thing in the world, as just like, yeah, this kind of instinct of, yeah, no, don't make a fuss, don't take up too much space. Yeah, don't laugh too loud. I don't know.
Yeah. What is an early memory that you have of that feeling?
Early memories.
If you look at a specific situation.
Well, I mean, in many ways, one of my only like recently, it's kind of I've realized more it's become more significant in my thing. I dropped out of kindergarten. Did I ever tell you this story?
No.
So yeah, and like, how do you drop out of kindergarten, right? Both my parents were working, so they started sending me. It's a nice place, but I just like remember the forced sleep and all of this, and I got this thing where like every 5-10 minutes I had to go to the bathroom to pee. So clearly a nervous response. And this was still the 1970s. So now they would have probably just medicated the crap out of me. But this was still the 1970s. So my parents took me to some psychiatrist and he went, "Oh, so your child gets nervous when he goes to kindergarten. Well, maybe you should stop sending him to kindergarten."
Brilliant. Wow.
Right. Yeah. So my parents continued working, but instead they found a stay-at-home mother And it wasn't in our neighborhood, it was a neighborhood over. So already at 4 or 5, I was my first immigrant experience. A few neighborhoods over, I was an outsider. So yeah, I remember that already in kindergarten. And again, nothing dramatic, nothing bad. It wasn't dirty. The kids weren't beaten. Like none of the horror stories that people have actually experienced. I'm not claiming that, but I just remember like this institutionalization of being just felt like the kids were playing and I was like, I really don't feel connected with this reality. And my subconscious just rebelled. Paradoxically, after that, I mean, school and all of that, I did really well. So, yeah, I mean, in primary school, I went to Poland for 4 years in primary school. And I only really had one good friend. Is another amazing story. I lost touch with her for like 20 years or something. And then she found me because we have a specific surname, and she was working at a bank, and she figured it was the main bank or the only bank in Poland in the old days that you could have US foreign currency accounts. So she figured they're abroad, maybe they have an account, and she found my father and looked so illegally, looked up on the bank system, his email, and sent him an email. And the amazing thing is when we were in school, you had like this little book of when you were bad, the teacher wrote notes and you had to take it to your parents and sign it. My mother was just like, yeah, whatever. My whole notebook was filled with Victor talks in class, Victor talks in class, Victor talks in class, Victor talks in class, because clearly we were above the level. So I was always talking with her. And then I met her again after not 18 years or 20 years. And it was amazing. It was just the same. We couldn't stop talking together. She's on a different path, but she's doing couples coaching, like, in a similar kind of world that we're going in, but around couples, love, romantic things. She's divorced, has 2 daughters. But it was just like talking like this. It's, yeah, I mean, certain people who you click with, it's for life. So, but that was only the only really like strong relationship that I had in primary school. So yeah, going to this, don't speak up, don't, yeah, it was kind of always there. And yeah, I think, I've also been aware that I've been told a lot that I speak over people and such, which I've been trying to work on. I think it's much better than it used to be. Definitely not perfect. So this how to take up the right amount of space is definitely a thing. This is also why I've come to love circle. Because in a circle, I don't have to worry about taking up too much space. It's a circle.
Yeah, the reason why I've been inquiring into this experience is because I feel that the self-doubt that you've mentioned, especially when it comes to will I be able to hold that? Will I be going into a cycle where I cannot take the responsibility because of my mental health? I feel that self-doubt is somehow a strategy that you're choosing, that you have learned in a way, where it was also, given the circumstances that you've been living in, a smart choice to, if I doubt myself, if I hold myself back as a consequence of that self-doubt, then I get more of the approval connection of my social environment. It doesn't sound like your parents were so much that, from what you shared, that they were really also supportive and okay with you being a bit of a rebel at school, but that at school for sure, you made that experience, or in other environments, that
Yes,
expressing
and
yourself more fully was
if we go
challenging
to
your social connections.
if we go to the parents thing, and again, like none of the drama that some people, there was never physical violence or any of the serious drama that people have experienced. But my parents loved each other very much and also fought a lot.
Mm,
So I was always, I grew up with, and I think as a child growing up in that kind of environment, you try and take up less space and not cause problems,
mm, mm,
right? It's a natural pattern that develops.
mm.
So again, it wasn't, I don't want to sound dramatic, but it was there.
And again, even in the way that you're framing that, you're making your suffering smaller than other people's suffering. And I, in my experience, don't think that we can relativize, if that's a word, the emotional suffering that we're going through. And sometimes the suffering of neglect or not being seen or not having space is even worse than physical violence, and experiencing things that apparently seem more traumatic. But how it lands on our soul is so unique and so different. So I just want to make sure that you're not minimizing the impact of these things on yourself and putting it into relation to what other people experience. We can never really compare what other people have gone through and how it impacted their soul's journey. And again, just noticing the tendency of making your suffering smaller than others and putting it into relation in a way that
I mean, I think it's a
diminishes it.
yes. And I think, I'm trying to stay in gratitude, also in respect to the people that are, there's so many people that are experiencing extreme forms of life difficulties, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know the list of the things. So, and yeah, everybody's suffering is their own. At the same time, I think, you know, hashtag remember Gaza, and then like, do I really have any problems?
Intellectually, I get what you're saying. And on an emotional level, I just feel the compassion for your younger self who has gone through really difficult moments, who has experienced moments of separation and loneliness, that are still impacting you. And it's easy to brush that away and compare it to what's happening in the world, but
And
to also
search
be with that, and acknowledge
also
the
from
seriousness of the rupture that has happened as well. Doesn't necessarily make the suffering of other people less severe, but to acknowledge that that is something that you experienced, I think, is valid, and you deserve to be acknowledged, and you deserve to feel the compassion for yourself and the love that also the young boy in you is worthy.
thank you.
And from that place, it is more than understandable, that there's self-doubt when you're now being put into a position, or you're putting yourself in a position where you're all of a sudden confronted with taking on more leadership, taking on more responsibility, taking more space, making yourself more visible. And then there comes the doubt of like, oh, can I hold that? What is the potential impact of that?
Yes.
And from what I hear, one of the strategies in the past to deal with a lot of intensity or stress or conflict in your field or any environment that is somewhat dysregulating for the nervous system, there has come a point when you experienced that you collapsed, that you had to be taken out of the situation, just like in kindergarten, or you took yourself out.
Yes.
And my sense is that for that time, that was a great strategy, that was something that gave you the fulfillment of the basic needs that you had as best as you could take care of that. And obviously, as children, we have a very limited choice of either going for the connection, the love, the acceptance, the approval of the people around us, or to step into our own autonomy and into our own self-expression. And oftentimes we don't even really have that choice because we're so dependent on acceptance, the approval of the people who take care of us, that we sacrifice our own autonomy and our truth and our sovereignty in order to get their connection and their love. So I feel that what you've chosen in the past as a child was something that was socially more acceptable. And developing the strategy of going into self-doubt and going into collapse and making yourself smaller than you are and becoming invisible, maybe because there was no space when your parents were fighting, was a good strategy that served you and kept you safe in that environment. But it also had a price that you're now becoming even more aware of.
Yes. I see what you're saying.
And so I feel right now you're living in a very different environment where you actually realize, oh, wait a minute, there are people who are willing to support me. I have allies. I have people who have the same dream, who are just as fucked up neurodivergent as I am, and we can come together and support each other in this. So I don't have to sacrifice my uniqueness, my weirdness, my greatness in order to be met with love, in order to be held, in order to be supported.
Yes.
And yet there is still a residue of that program, of what kept me safe in the past.
Yeah, I mean it's patterns. The patterns are baked in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a loop which is baked into the thing, so you just keep on replaying it.
Mm-hmm. And so when I asked you earlier about the vision, if we were to talk in a year, the first thing that came for you was that self-doubt, the fear of failure. And it wasn't even about your vision. It was about what's holding you back from actually allowing yourself to feel and to imagine this vision of what could be possible if that wasn't there. And I feel that that is a strategy that has kept you safe, but it's not going to get you where you want to go. And so the first step towards looking at that edge, I think, is to feel the gratitude, to feel the appreciation, the acknowledgement for having found that strategy in the past that kept you safe. So there is this little boy in you who found a great strategy that protected you and made sure that you are living the life that you're living right now. And I think a big part of that is to have also the compassion of acknowledging, yes, it was really difficult. It was really hard for you to be in these circumstances and not to put it into relation too much to what other people might also have suffered. But to really feel that young part as well, who has done his best, and to feel the appreciation and the gratitude, not just for the life circumstances that you have had that were also supportive and that were maybe seemingly better than what other people are suffering through, but also for yourself, for navigating so the less than optimal life circumstances that you've had. And from this place, I think that's where you can then look at, wow, what do I want to make as a new choice? To see that pattern more clearly and then to see what is actually my reality right now. And to see that there is an adult in you that has the capacity to make a new choice and to see, oh, wait a minute, in the past, showing myself fully taking up space meant danger. And now that's actually what is asked of me. And to confront that fear, that self-doubt, that belief that it is dangerous to show myself more fully, that it will lead to being alone, that it will lead to my friends leaving me if I collapse, if I don't deliver what I said I would deliver.
Yes.
And I feel you are, in a way, poking that belief. Well, that seems like a solid reality, and the more you're poking it and drilling little holes in it, you're see like, oh, wait a minute, that belief isn't actually true anymore. I have friends now who, even if I break down at the gathering of tribes, they're still there. They're still walking the path with me. And I'm not alone, and I can show myself in my strength and in my weakness, and I have people who stay with me in this. And I'm taking the steps to consciously also create this support network of people who are walking this path with me, who I can feel as allies in my back, that are somehow challenging the old limiting belief that has kept you small. How does that land when I speak that?
Yeah, I agree. What comes to my mind is also that it's a mirror of the, I don't know if this is useful or not, but this is what came to mind, is that it's a mirror of what's happening in the ecosystem, that those of us building building new systems, wanting to work in a new way, build a new economy, the whole how bundle that's kind of stayed marginal for 50 or 100 years. We are coming together. Yeah, I mean, I think my journey is actually in many ways very typical of the people in our space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I think this is my dream, is, going from the why. I mean, we're certainly surrounded by people who have many people have a much deeper understanding of the wide meta crisis, poly crisis, meaning crisis, pick your favorite crisis, space, all of the frameworks for how, but the getting shit done, actually making it happen at bioregional, global, whatever, pick your neighborhood, pick your scale. Uh, I think it's coming. And yeah, this is, I guess, I mean, I don't feel, maybe this is one key reason why I don't feel in any way, certainly not anymore, bad or resentful about my shortcomings and limitations. I think they are quite quite average and similar to so many people in space. And by seeing my own challenges, I see the opportunity of helping so many others as well, right? That's why I did the gathering, because I need a support network, and I know that so many other people as well. So why don't we just solve it for a whole bunch of people, and then my problems will be solved, but so will be many, many, many others. And then also maybe because I also see that, or I believe that the only way to solve my problem is to solve that problem for all those other people that are feeling it as well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which makes it much harder because, getting 500 people together is much more work than getting 5 friends together for tea. Uh, But I think once it starts going, the potential, it becomes much easier in the long run. It's much, much harder in the short run, tough in the medium run, but in the long run, once it gains momentum, you just get carried along by it.
Mm-hmm.
The revolution of the neurodivergent, which, by the way, it seems like everybody's got ADHD or this or that, right? Like, is anybody that's not neurodivergent?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There is such a weird notion that there is anything like normal, that there are people who have normal brains. No, what the fuck? I mean, we're all grown up in a deeply traumatized society. How could anyone of us not be traumatized growing up in a system like that? So one of the ways that I like to look at it is that in our wounds is also our greatest gift. And you're modeling it in such a beautiful way. I listened to uh, an entrepreneur who's very successful, and he said, if you look at the first 6 years of your life, you basically have the whole entrepreneurial path that will lead you to success laid out in front of you, because whatever is your challenge in the first 6 years of your life will be your greatest contribution as an entrepreneur. So what you're
Hey,
saying, I very
as your biggest your biggest trauma can be your biggest driver.
right.
I think it goes either it's what haunts you for your whole life and turns your life into living hell if you don't process it well,
Mhm.
or it can be your biggest strength driving you to do good in the world if you process it in a healthy way.
Yeah. So what you're observing, I think, is very accurate. That somehow what we're seeing on the outside world on a systemic level is somehow mirroring also the inner development of many of us that we're going through. And so what I see as an amazing opportunity is to actually create new patterns in ourselves, and that will then naturally also create new patterns in the outside world. Because many people are still in a place where they're in such denial about their own traumas that they're going into all the things that I don't have to go into, the overconsumption, drug abuse, whatever. That's part of the why, to see like, whoa, wait a minute, that's what's still holding me back and still somehow distracting me from my truth and my soul's path is also what, if I look at that closely, what is holding us back on an ecosystemic level? Why are not more people stepping into full leadership? Because they're still in a dynamic where they're listening to what authorities tell them and all these kind of things. So it's mirroring also the dynamics in our social fields in a way. And the more that
But I would also connecting with me to, because I think it's an important question, why do more people not step into leadership? Because leadership has been painted to be that one kind of leadership. The hero, the fireman, blah, 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 rushing into a burning fire. And there's a lot of people who don't resonate with just that way of being in the world. It's not their path. Right? The more feminine, the more servant, the more all other kinds of things, which is also leadership, but is not recognized. And like we have our favorite friend Elon Musk, who's everybody love him or hate him, he's still on the cover of newspapers. And that's how we model leadership. There's lots of people who are like, if that's leadership, it's like, I'm not interested in that for good reason.
Right. Yeah, and so I think it's a very valuable inquiry for what does leadership look like for you. But I think even before that is the question, what would you need in order to step into that role more fully? To even allow yourself to dream up a new leadership role in that field.
Yeah, I mean, it's having that support group, which again, uh, that doesn't mean just like people being nice to me, but people reflecting back, right? Which things make sense, which don't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Where am I taking up too much space, being annoying and getting in the way of people, versus where is it useful because I'm inspiring and this is what's needed in the moment, help me redact, uh, help me grow and develop in the way which enables me to discover that.
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever send you the 8 minute, Simon Sinek, the 8 minutes video?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting because recently somebody reached out to me this week, and he was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry that." I'm like, "No, I feel, dude, I'm here for you. I want to listen." And then when we finished, I looked and it was 9.5 minutes,
Nice.
almost exactly 8 minutes,
Oh,
right? And he was like,
oh,
"Thank you, that's what I needed." Da, da, da. So I'm starting to get there, but really having enough people who you can call and ask for 8 minutes. And then, I guess some kind of group of practice, people who reflect and, I guess, who give me meaningful feedback on what parts of what I'm doing make sense, what parts need to be done differently, better, whatever.
Yeah, and I think part of that is also to train a team of people around you so that they notice the early warning signs of when you're getting into mental overload, when you're getting to nervous system overactivation. And that can be very different signs that you will probably know best if you look closely. If you're, for example, engaging in micromanagement conversations and people notice that they can point it out to you like, hey, Victor, you're micromanaging. Maybe you should take a day off. And to support you in that way so that you don't have to get into contracted states where you need to collapse or where it's also okay to preemptively collapse before you actually collapse, to say, okay, I'm taking a few days off and taking care of myself before it gets too much, knowing that there are other people who catch me and who catch the things that need to be done.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for your what's near about and the fear of the burden and the stress and the fear of being alone or the fear of failure are not getting in the way. You had that resolve because you have that team of support around you. Is that something that you're open to look into?
You mean like the big ultimate dream in terms of
Not the big ultimate dream,
sense?
but what reality in a year could look like for you if that was in place. And if you allow yourself to dream big for a year and then the big ultimate dream in 10, 15 years.
My projects are, can I get 5 years?
Sure.
Or is,
yeah, let's play with 5 years.
It's like I'm in a village building, right? I mean,
right.
in one, lucky we found the land and started the process. It's like not so much.
Okay. Yeah. It's good.
5 years.
And the invitation is really to speak from it as if it was today. So what would that be? 2029, 14th November.
In terms of concrete things, finally living in a village surrounded by people where I can have these kinds of conversations in person on a regular basis. I think now to me it's clear that it's not just a village, it's a network of villages. So you've built one in Costa Rica. We have people in the US, right? Like it's starting to happen. It's another conversation we should have, but Drawer is here. We're going to retreat on the thing and I'm here to sell the bigger vision. So this belonging and connection at multiple levels, from the local neighborhood of people to network of sister villages and so on and so forth. Going into the garden, digging, planting trees. It's really nice. It's just so fulfilling. Putting plants into the ground. It's grounding. It's wonderful. I have opinions. And it's where my opinions and my ideas are useful. I'm also good at asking questions, but I'm also good at giving my ideas. Supporting teams, building software, having lunch in a communal village space. Definitely in the village, I need crafts. So that's also my other big motivation is I love doing ceramics. Would be amazing to have a woodworking workshop and things like this. But yeah, I mean, in general, to be honest, I really love pretty much everything that I'm doing now. It's just that it's not giving enough yield in terms of turning into making things happen, turning into businesses and so on and so forth. Right. And I would like to work a bit more internationally, travel around a bit more again. But not travel for the sense of traveling, but travel to do projects, to work with people, to yeah.
In terms of your financial abundance, what is it that you're generating in 5 years that would make you feel really abundant? And
If I'm getting 4,000 or 5,000 euros a month into the bank account, that's enough for me. It's for me, it's less the how much per month. It's more because I'm not really paid into any social security system for retirement or whatever, right? So for me, it's more about feeling a sense of I will be fine and I will have work until I die. I mean, I think this whole retirement thing never really made sense. I mean, retirement made sense when Bismarck put it in place and it was for miners. You retired, you were alive for 2 or 3 years, and then you died. So you had a 2-3 year vacation before you kicked the bucket. Okay, there it made sense. And certainly people deserved it. This whole thing, retire and then do nothing for 20, sometimes 30 years thing makes no sense. So, yeah, I mean, I want to continue doing things until I drop. Yeah.
so if you connect with this vision and feel that in your body, how does it feel to speak from that place?
Joyous, energizing. I don't know. Is there ego rising? No, maybe it's relief.
Funny when you're speaking from that place, it feels very natural somehow. It doesn't feel like such a huge difference to what you're living right now, emotional.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel, again, like I say, I really love everything that I'm doing, that we're doing together, it's too much of a struggle. And it's not moving, right? I've been trying to build this build a village thing for 10 years and it hasn't shifted enough.
So
now
what is different in 5 years? What's the big difference?
Less
now?
struggle. Less
instead,
struggle, right? It's not.
What is it instead of struggle?
The effort results in motion, in projects happening, in people working together, look even at the example of something like The Gathering, right? I worked my ass off, as did Audrey, for 8-10 months. That's great. We got 500 people together, and sum total, the company made 15,000 euros profit. That's not enough, right? I don't mind working that hard, but it would be nice if it at least created a decent livelihood for 3 or 4 people, and not asking for some massive abundance, just lack of scarcity. That would be a good start. But then also for the bigger projects, right? For building a village, I really see you need to do it at scale, right? It's small is not beautiful. And this idea, I used to think the people are like, oh, we're going to build 10, 20 projects around the world. And I was like, fucking crazy. Why so big? Just like, and now I'm like, fuck it. That's how you have to do it. Otherwise, the numbers and the effort, it doesn't add up, and you just have, right? Everything has a certain scale, and inshallah, I might live another 30 years. So it's entirely within the realm of the imaginable. But for that, we need to move significant resources. And for that, we need that. We need access to those people, to the financial resources, and all of that. So I'm really happy with what I'm working on. I really don't mind the amount that I'm working. I would just like the result to be more impressive. And again,
just because you mentioned it again, that you don't need to have massive abundance, why not? I'm just mentioning it because I've heard you say several times that you just want to have an average middle European income. And I get it. It's not the point for you why you're doing that. That's not in doubt. But what would be possible for you if you made a really big amount of money? I know that whatever you have, you would in some way funnel back into the system.
There is a difference between owning and being able to direct the flow. I would love to be able to direct the flow of hundreds of millions. I think billions, it starts to be too crazy. But to be able to, right, like, I don't need to have 100 million. I would like to be sitting on the board of 100 million regenerative land fund and finding projects for it. So I definitely want to have influence on the movement of large amounts of money. I have no need for it to belong to me. Right? So there is the big difference. I mean, I can't eat more, like I can eat out in a Michelin star restaurant once in a while. Great. But beyond that, like a Ferrari, it won't make it down this fucking road. So, so for me, it's much more interesting. Definitely being able to influence the flow of large amounts of money is important. I'd like to have access to power, wealth, privilege, but in the sense of being part of the conversation and helping them direct their wealth. I don't need a fucking mansion.
Yeah, I get that. So in terms of that vision that you described, that in some ways also already feels very close because it's very close to what you're already living. For me, it's not so much about what you're actually achieving in the outside world, but the inner state of how does it feel to have that achieved. And then not to make that as something that you will achieve in the future, but as the inner place that you're coming from right now. So how would it feel not to have any self? To be fully convinced because it is your reality that you can achieve that. How would it feel to be abundantly supported financially, socially, culturally, and to live in a village where you have all the opportunities of doing the craft, of going to lunch in a communal space, of having all these things. If you tap into how that feels, to have obvious proof that this is your reality, and that all the self-doubt that has been holding you back doesn't impact you anymore. You're so confident and you're so courageous to take the next steps. What's the thing that you're going to do next? What's the way in which you're interacting with the world? How do you interact with the world from that inner place where you have achieved that already? Who are the people that you're going to talk to next? How are you dressing? How are you showing up in the world? This is what I'm more interested in.
I mean, I think the second that already I started it to some degree, but it's about enabling as many others as possible to have that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Working with young people, with entrepreneurs, especially. I've realized I love supporting women leaders. I had a strong mother, so it's not in any kind of a weird way. It's in that, like, I had a strong, powerful mother I looked up to, so I have a natural affinity for those kind of strong personality leader women. I would love to be in a place where I can create systems and environments where people that are not coming from privilege, luck, etc., or from the typical things, also have access to becoming creative, entrepreneurial, and making their dreams happen in the world.
We're coming to the end of our agreed time, and I'm curious, what is your biggest insight from this so far?
That I'm on the right path? Yeah, I mean, it re-emphasizes the, I guess it makes me more hopeful. It feels less far away. Than it does some days. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, just as you shared about your vision, I felt the inner state that you will have achieved when you have that in the outside world is very close to what you're already living. Your ideal day is already very close to what you're living right now. And there are many things that are on the way that I feel are shifting for you in the outside world as well, in the way that they have in some ways already shifted on the inside. In the beginning, you said you would like to have more confidence. And I believe that you don't need more confidence, but that confidence is a result of walking that path. That the more that you're continuing the work that you're doing and putting your dreams into reality, the more you are of service, the more confident you will be of that path that you're already walking. And it's not the prerequisite for you to continue doing what you're doing. Thank you for tuning in to the Soul Awakened Leadership Podcast. You will find all the links and information on today's guest in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who might benefit from the insights. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment or review on Spotify or any of the platforms. If you would like to find out more about my work or connect, you can visit jonathanklod.com, that is JONATHANKLODT.com, or find me at Jonathan Klod on Instagram or Facebook.